Hey guys, this is George with MGW. We're here with svtperformance.com. We're going to go over a new 2015 shifter for the MT-82 Mustang. We're going to break down the whole shifter, its new components, our new design that is strictly a transmission mount, and we're also going to dispel some of the myths and some of the confusion with this type of design. So let's get into it. All right, let's go over the entire kit for the Race-Spec MT-82 shifter from MGW. Let's go with the add-on components first, and then we'll get into the actual billet structure of the shifter. All of our shifters come with our Dynapads. It's a sound and vibration dampening pad that goes up into the inner console. We also have heat shielding material that will wrap the entire shifter body to keep heat out. It also is a good sound and vibration dampener as well. We include a sheet of Dynamax Extreme, and we'll show during the install where they're attached, just various areas on the shifter and everything to cut down on vibration as well. And depending on the year, some of the years like the 15s and newer, they don't use this type OEM boot, so it will be provided on the 15 to present cars. And then obviously we provide the Loctite. We have some blue Loctite and red Loctite, and we'll show where they go. And the cup of grease to lubricate the internals of the shifter mechanism. So the shifter itself, oh, and also here's the, we provide a T-Allen wrench for bolting in the shifter. It gives you a lot more clearance so that you don't hit your hands on the actual shift knob shaft. So that tool is included in the kit as well. And this is the shifter itself. This is the entire body. It's got everything replaced. Nothing is reused from the factory. We're even going to get into the internals. We don't even reuse any of the pivot cups, and we'll show you why. This is the linkage bar that goes into the transmission. It mounts right here. And these are the mounting screws in various areas. And these are our new strut arm clamps. And we'll get into the designs of those in detail in a minute. But they are connected to this, which is our new bridge design. We made this new design over the previous Race-Spec that we released last month, mainly because the EcoBoost, the V6, and the GT have so many different lengths and stuff that this rod here and this bar here had to be about an inch difference between the models. So instead of making the old bar as two long ones, we just make this bridge assembly, and then this piece and this piece will just come in different lengths. It cuts down on machining costs and inventory costs, so that actually lowers the price of the shifter, which our customers really will appreciate. So that's the kit. It's very simple, but it works perfectly, and we'll get into the details on how it works here in a second. All right, the first aspect of our Race-Spec that we're going to address is the center linkage rod. And this, we're going to show the comparison to the OEM rod. This is basically the same as the 11 to 14. This is a 15. The rod is only different by this little cast piece. Used to be steel like this, but it works the same way. It has a joint here, it has a joint here, and it also has a joint here. And the reason they do that is because they're using the same shifter design, basic design for the EcoBoost, the V6, and the GT. And the transmission here, mounted to the motor, is in many different locations, at least an inch down, and in some cases almost an inch and a quarter back between the EcoBoost and the GT. So they have different length arms here, but they also mount this thing so it can move around this way, up and down, to keep it level without having to change where it's mounted here. We decided that we wanted to get as close to a top loader feel, which is the optimum shift feel when you're using a manual transmission, and these remote shifters lose a lot of that because of the articulation. We removed all the joints, so it only mounts here and it comes straight back into the shifter. This is a polished and ground 303 stainless rod, so we can keep perfect precision on the bushings that we machine. We don't have to worry about welded pieces. There's not going to be any weld slag or anything on there. One of the misconceptions that we've heard on the internet and from our competitors is that this is a load-bearing design and it puts stress on this joint, and that is absolutely not true, and we're going to show why. We'll take the bolt here and we'll mount this shifter rod onto the transmission. And I'll show you that because this thing has a ball at the end of it, when you mount the screw on there, you still have movement left to right and over a half of an inch movement up and down. There's going to be no movement in the shifter, but even if there was and you were putting slight stress on it, as you can see, you're putting no stress on the input shaft of the transmission. It's free to move up and down, left to right. So there's going to be no load put on this shaft at all. It was never designed to be like that. It's just mainly designed to remove the articulation so that when you're trying to shift, the thing doesn't do this and try to bind on you, and that makes the shift feel a lot better. And because we've designed our own linkage rod complete, we now do not need to use anything from the factory. Even this pivot cup, which we were taking off and putting onto the MGW shifter in the past, we've eliminated. And the reason for that is we've actually found over all of the models from 11 all the way up to 15 that there is some variance, more tolerance variance in the diameter of this hole that's welded to the rod, and actually into the diameter of this, it's probably an injection molded plastic pivot cup. So between those and these, you get some that are really tight and you get some that are fairly loose. And we wanted to make the shifter perfect. So what we did was we actually machine our own pivot cup that's pressed in to our machine pivot cup capture, and we give ourselves less than a thousandth play between those. So you get a rock solid shift as well. Okay, the next thing we're going to show is our internal bushings compared to the factory. Now, a lot of people said that these are sufficient. We feel they're not, because number one, they're split and they're very weak. You see, that's how much actual contact bearing surface. The rest of it's soft rubber, and it's split, and it's only about maybe 1/4 of an inch thick. So we feel, especially with this articulating joint that's always getting hung up, when you put pressure on it, with that little bit of support area, you can actually kink the thing sideways, because these are keeping you from getting a smooth shift. So the whole thing can move left or right, and it just all contributes to not a very precise shift. So what we do is, both front and back, we have 4 times the contact area. And what that does is, the reason why the longer you have the support area, that keeps the rod from being able to move side to side, because you're putting a tremendous amount of shift force on there. So now, as you look at this piece, the contact area here, there's the pivot cup, you only have about maybe 3/4 of an inch at the most of actual clearance that it's free play. The rest of it is supported. And then you have just about 2 inches there. So you have a lot of support on the rod, so there's no way the rod's going to be able to move on you. This is a new material we're using as well. It's a Teflon impregnated erdolite, and this stuff is very, very good. It's actually designed to run bone dry. We'll lubricate it because some of the pieces we want to have just to quiet down any type of vibration, but it actually can run absolutely bone dry. And you can see it's just super slick, especially on this polished and ground rod. There's less than 2 thousandths of play. We have just enough play in it for thermal expansion, and that's the other thing. We're allowed to have a little bit more tolerance on here for thermal expansion to make sure it doesn't bind up, because we have so much length of support. On something that's this thin, if you have a much larger opening here and you don't have it a perfect fit, which you're never going to get with this split design, you can also get a lot of movement left to right and up and down, which gives it a, just a really crappy feel. This is the main shifter body for the Race-Spec. We're going to talk about its attributes as well as the reverse design. The one thing we are continuing with is our push-down design, because we feel it is absolutely superior than the pull-up type. The factory pull-up type, if you can look at this shifter here, it's very soft, flimsy plastic. It's barely held on just with this one Torx bolt, and it's designed to actually ride over that and actually pull back when you're going in and out of reverse. I just feel that's a wear item that is going to fail over time. So we decided to go with what our customers have overwhelmingly suggested, and that was to continue using like the 11 to 14 with the push-down design. One of the advantages of that, as always with ours, is it's the only shifter on the market that has an adjustable pin, because every transmission has slight variances in how it's mounted, how the reverse lockout gates are located. So when you come over here and you touch that post to lock in 1 to 2, if it's just a little off and you're shifting hard, you can actually pull in and go to that dead zone between second and reverse. And if you have no adjustability here, you're pretty much screwed. So this pin allows you to fine-tune it just by loosening this nut, and we actually have a video on our channel that shows exactly how to do that. You can look at that. We'll show some links at the end of the video as well for those. The shifter itself comes just like this. We have a little bit different length for the EcoBoost. It's going to be a little taller because the transmission actually sits a little lower, but all of them come basically looking just like this, and every one from 11 to present does come with our deluxe jam nut. So that goes on there if you decide you do not want to use the factory knob and you want to buy an aftermarket knob, either from us or from several of the companies online that make these type knobs with different logos and stuff. Just ask them for the M12 by 1.25 thread, which is standard thread from 2011 all the way to present, and it will fit our shifter. The jam nut just goes down, and then you screw the ball on, and we actually have a stainless steel stamp tool that goes inside these little grooves here that you can lock it down. So that's an option that you have there, which a lot of people like because some people do not like the 2015 shift knob, which is this one. Let me take this off here and I'll show you how that mounts. Now the factory one has this kind of chintzy plastic piece. This is the pull-up mechanism. That's why you have basically a half of a shift ball. It's designed to go like this and it goes in and out, but it's just plastic, so it's kind of cheesy as well. What we did is that if somebody wants to have that look of the factory but has our shifter with the push down, this is a CNC billet. It's aluminum, it's not plastic, and it's triple chrome plated. And it's basically designed to mate with it so it looks just like the factory knob, except we went with the high polished chrome because it matches the bezel on your car better. And all you do is just screw that down. And it does have a locking screw that you'll put at the 12 o'clock position so it's not seen. And then you can just put the shift knob on top of it until it tightens up, and make sure you don't get too tight on it because I think you can actually pop these emblems out, because now you have the luxury where you can actually turn this thing up into it like that, get it lined up, and then just lock the screw down. So that's a really nice look if you want to maintain the OEM look. And then we also have a better knob option, in our opinion, is our CNC machined combination of billet and rubber handle gripper knobs, and they give the best of both worlds. This knob is a very beefy weighted knob. It's a little bit larger in diameter, as you can see from the stock knob. So guys would have larger hands. They kind of said this was a little too small for them, so this is a much better feel. This is an all-in-one machined product. It's triple chrome CNC billet machine, and then we mold these rubber cores. It's got a nice pebble grain finish to give you a good grip so it doesn't slip, and it just screws right on here. Okay, and once it's screwed down all the way, it also has a locking screw at 12 o'clock. All that does is just locks it down and keeps them from rotating. You still have machine threads in there, so there's no chance of the knob slipping off. And it gives a really good look. It's weighted. It's got a little, like I said, it's a little bit larger diameter, so it really makes the shift feel good. So you have a lot of options with this, as well as any other shift knob that's available on the market now. And that's why we like our design, because with the factory design, you're pretty much stuck with this. With our design, you can put anything on there that has an M12 by 1.25 thread. And our gripper knobs that are available actually have several logo options. Here's the factory gear shift pattern. Here's the GT logo, the Running Horse logo, and we also have the Boss 302 logo available. All right, let's go over our new mounting design. The Race-Spec that we offered for the last couple of months, we felt very strongly about. It really worked well with the rear bushing bracket that is this design that mounted on the back of the shifter, and it was body mounted, and there was a reason for that. It actually dissipated vibration. It was not for structural support, but we still had a lot of people, especially some of the 15 Mustang customers, that said, based on the competition and what they felt would be the best offering, is they didn't want it to be mounted to the body in any way. Well, we fought that until we came up with this design, because we still needed somewhere for the vibration to go. We were not satisfied with solid mounting this thing just to the transmission and letting it bounce around and let all of this harmonics and vibration that's coming into the transmission to transfer right up through the shifter. So this design really is not an improvement over the previous design, because I actually feel the other design worked just as well, but it does, relieve some of the, misconceptions of a body mounted to a transmission mounted shifter. So let's get into how we made this work just as good as the rear mounted style. First of all, this is the assembly, and we're going to break it down. This is the front arm, and this is the bridge mount, and that mounts in the same place on the transmission as the factory arm does. What we've done is, right here at the mounting point, is we've taken these stainless steel bushings, and we have a hardened rubber core that will go into each side of the shifter like this. We'll put the rubber in first to show how they're mounted in. And this will all be assembled at the factory, so you will not have to do any of this work. So you just get them in. It's a very tight fit. Pops these in like this. And then you take the other one on the other side, and you press it in like that. And then we press in the stainless steel cores. And as you can see, we have flanges that go all the way around to support it. Rubber is just like water. It cannot be displaced when you compress it. It has to have somewhere to go. So by limiting the areas where the rubber can go, there's very little compression that we're allowing, just enough to dampen harmonics and vibration that come out of the transmission up here at the top. As you can see, the factory design failed in this way because they have a polyurethane spacer around it to try to isolate it. The problem, though, is that they only had a steel tube in the center. So when you flex the shifter, you can actually flex this thing inside because there's nothing pushing against this surface. So when this is mounted inside here like this, as you can see, you can still move it around a lot, and you can see it compressing even though the pin in here doesn't move that much. By contrast, when you mount ours and you put it in there, it's a tight fit and there's no movement, because when you pull on it like this, the entire flange of the stainless is compressing the rubber rather than the piece inside just moving back and forth. So let's take the entire assembly here and we'll show you how it's mounted first. You just put it in here like we said, you just tap it in there. You take your factory bolt, you put it in here, and we'll take a 10 millimeter and when you do your mounting of this bracket, you would just get it in here snug, and that will allow this thing to still move up and down freely. And then let's talk about the strut arms. This is how they come, and we actually will probably just mount these things on there as well, just finger tight, so that you don't even have to worry about that. They'll be mounted like this. And let me get the mounting screws. Okay, here's the mounting screws, and they will go in there like this. So, and as you can see, these have a full 1/2 inch of stainless shoulder here, because when you put those in here, we didn't want just the stress of the pressure up and down to be put just on this bolt, even though it's a grade 8 bolt. So these are actually designed to slide all the way in, and then the bolt basically just retains it from sliding out. So the pressure is actually not on the bolt, it's on the shoulder. And you do the other one on the other side. And then before we go any further, I'll show you how they're designed as well. We actually made these things very similar to a suspension arm. You have a pocket here, and you have these hardened rubber shoulder inserts that work as dampeners. They're snapped into each side, and they're a real nice snug fit. And then we CNC machine these stainless strut arm bolts, and they'll slide in here. Make sure that we're getting these in the right way. You have one that's for the driver's side, one on the passenger side, so that would go in this way. And these slide in there just like that. And as you can see, they're also captured. You have a shoulder on the gold part, and you have a shoulder on the stainless part. So even though you get some dampening, just like a shock absorber, it actually has very little movement. So when you put it in there, it feels rock solid, even though it is actually dampening harmonics and vibration. This is a great design because we're also going to offer, it'll be about 4 weeks. The shifters will start shipping in a couple weeks. But in about 4 weeks, we're actually going to offer different durometers. So you can fine tune this shifter. We're going to have some quite soft ones for a street car, and we're actually going to have ones that are even harder than these for, you know, really high performance competition usage. But right now, this durometer hardness we felt offered very, very good vibration dampening, as well as gave you a solid feel. So those are ones we're going to choose as standard. So let's get over here and we'll show how this thing is mounted. You basically just pull this thing up and you'll back the screw off just enough to get this thing to move in and out. And let's move it out a little bit more. And you find this bolt here, and you basically just, it's only going to go in one place. You're basically bolting this thing in a triangular pattern. Once it's set in one position, it cannot move. This thing cannot go down or up because this thing would have to move on a radius, so there's no way it can work. So it's a really good design. We have a clamp here, which will show what that does in a second. Loosen up the one on this side. Do the same thing. You just wiggle the thing and get it locked in. Then you take a 1/2 inch ratchet Tighten that up. Tighten that side up. And then you just take these and you'll just snug them down. All they do is basically, you can see there's a crush slot here. It just squeezes onto that bolt head so that it doesn't rattle on you. But even if these were loose, these can't go anywhere, because the only way this thing could come off is if this bolt was removed so you could slide it out. Once it's on there, it's rock solid. It's not going anywhere. So now we've produced a rock solid, only transmission mounted shifter design. And to show how solid this thing is, I mean, you can bang it down, it's not going anywhere, and you can lift the whole transmission up. No problem. All right, we're going to show a real quick bench install, showing how the new design works and just how easy it is to mount. We actually have a pretty neat option now when you order your shifter. You can actually request a drive shaft installed kit. And that means you can actually request that this entire shifter upper part be fully assembled for you if you're going to be doing a drive shaft swap, or if you just would like to do it by removing the drive shaft and swinging it out of the way to avoid quite a few steps on the MGW. And all you have to do is request that at the ordering, and we will actually mount everything for you. If you're not going to do a drive shaft swap or are unwilling to remove the drive shaft, we'll show you how to do that with the traditional method as well. But let's show you the real quick way. You'll have the drive shaft disconnected, and you'll just swing it over to the side, and you'll basically be able to just install the top linkage arm first, and you'll put some blue Loctite on this bolt. And what's nice about it is doing everything is going to only be these two tools. You have a 10mm ratcheting box wrench, and you have a 1/2 inch socket on a little 1/4 inch ratchet. So we're going to put this in with the Loctite, and we're going to just snug that up. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to bring the whole bridge, and like I said, we'll have the arms connected. They'll just be loose here. You'll bring this up, put it right on top. You'll take your factory arm or the 10mm bolt, and you'll just line this up in here. Put that in, and then you have your 10mm ratcheting box wrench. And again, you'll put some blue Loctite on this bolt as well. The Loctite is included in the kit. You'll bring this up, and you just bring it up snug, because like I said, you still want to have some movement here. Just bring it up snug so you can move it around. And then we'll come around to the front here and show you how to do this first. You'll just move this back a few turns. You'll lift this up. You'll pull it out just enough to clear the bolt head. And then you'll just move it down until you get it to line up, just like that. It's as simple as that. You just bring the bolt head in here. Same 1/2 inch socket. And you don't even have to, you don't want to get this completely tight either, because you still want a little wiggle like this. To come over to the back side, you do the same thing. You'll unscrew that, you'll pull it out, you'll wiggle this thing, get that thing on there, and then you just go around and tighten everything up. And it's all self-centering and self-leveling, so there's no guesswork at all. And these will have Loctite on them, or you will put Loctite on them as well. So once you get those tight, you want to come down here, and you just want to tighten these up. And you don't have to get crazy on these. They have lock washers, and they're basically just to put a little bit of pressure. They'll squeeze around that bolt head so that you don't get any rattling from the aluminum on the metal. And do the same thing to there. Go back around, just check all the bolts, make sure they're really tight, and then you can go back in here and go ahead and snug this one up completely as well. And now that thing is rock solid. So then all you need to do is, like I said, if you have the drive shaft removed, you just bring this up in here, and you actually can push this forward to get the shifter in first. And we'll pull that thing in there like that. And we'll take the longer bolt, which is supplied. We'll put some Loctite on it as well. We'll put it in here. Take our 1/2 inch ratchet again. Snug that up. And then you'll just want to wiggle this in here a little bit. There we go. And you line up that hole in there. You just want to get that started in there. and then get your 1/2-inch socket. Same thing. Now this one we provide red Loctite. I'd like to have red Loctite on here so there's no chance that this disconnects, because that's obviously the most important attachment point, is your linkage rod to your shifter, so you don't lose the ability to shift the vehicle. And it does have a lock washer included with it as well. So once we get that locked in place, put the thing back up in the neutral. There you go. Okay, here's the entire Race-Spec shifter assembled and installed on the transmission. And I want to just go over again, just review the key points of this design. You have vibration coming in from the mounting point here. You also have some vibration coming in through the linkage rod. These areas have to be addressed, and this is how we have addressed them. We've addressed them actually in all 4 points of the shifter to try to minimize it as best we can. As we showed, there's a vibration dampener inside the mounting point here. Even though it's rigid and solid supported, there is a rubber dampener. This allows the vibration coming from this point to at least be dammed up somewhat. Some is going to get through this, we understand. That was the whole concept of the rear, having the rear bushing bracket on our previous design mounted to the body. Not for structural support, but for vibration dissipation. So what we've done, since we've eliminated that, we have to let that vibration go somewhere. So what we've got is we have vibration coming in through here, but we also have vibration coming in through here. So what's happening is that they're coming in, and with this triangular design here and these dampeners on each side, we're damming it here, but we're also letting the vibration come up through here, pass down these arms, and actually get dampened here as well. The residual vibration that actually does make it past this design that comes into the body, it will come in and some will travel up, and that's why we have a vibration core in here. And as you can see, it's got a really thick rubber core here that dampens the last bit of vibration. We have the thin polyurethane sleeve in here that we take from the factory arm and put in the MGW linkage arm. That allows some dissipation here, but you will get some vibration coming in through here. So what we've done is, as we showed with the bushings that are inside the shifter here, there and there, they have rubber dampeners on them, as well as a rubber dampener on the pivot cup that we machine. So we really have provided a lot of dampening without sacrificing rigidity at all. When somebody comes up to this shifter, as we'll have mounted at shows, and grabs it, they're going to swear this thing is welded to the transmission. It's that rigid. And the end result is a shifter that basically acts like a bolt-action rifle. Rock solid, but also silky smooth. And you've got our reverse lockdown with hardened plate and hardened pin. You just push down, push over a little bit, and it goes right in. And with our heavy springs, return springs, pops right back. 5th gear, 6th gear, 4th, 3rd. And our 2nd gear is just designed, open the hand, push straight up, springs push it right into 3rd every time. Reverse again, easy, push it over, push it down, pop it up, comes right back out.